Hey, everybody, welcome back to the channel that takes you deep inside the San Francisco 49ers. I am your host, Jack Hammer. The 49ers having some big news today. There was actually an update that came out. An NFL insider who believes that Brock Purdy is an NFL MVP candidate. We're going to get into that. Also, the 49ers have one of their offensive players named the NFL's Offensive Player of the Month for the month of September on the offensive side of the ball. We will also get to that. We'll talk about the 49ers practice report as well today. The 49ers having some injury issues. Finally, the beginning of the season, it's been pretty good for the 49ers, but they right now are dealing with the most injuries that we've seen so far throughout this short part of the season through these first 4 weeks. So let's go ahead. Let's get into all of this right now here on Inside the Farms with Jack Hammer. Holland Tracy, a member of the Toolbox. That's why he has that dollar sign next to his name. Says, "Made it." Hey, Holland, good to have you on board. Let's get into it. I've said this before, and that I feel like Brock Purdy, if he is able to put up the type of numbers that he put up last season, if the 49ers make it to a Super Bowl, if they win the Super Bowl, actually, it won't matter if they win the Super Bowl because the award will be coming out before that. But if the 49ers can get to the Super Bowl, Brock Purdy plays the way that he's played last year during that stretch, they got the 49ers to the NFC Championship game. If he can play at that level, but put that together through a full 17-game regular season and then into the playoffs, that I feel like he would be an NFL MVP candidate. Now, whether he would win that award or not, there's a lot of things that go into it. However, I'm not the only person that seems to believe this. Rich Eisen said this last week. And then more recently, you had NFL insider Steve Weish actually went on the Rich Eisen show, and the discussion came up regarding Brock Purdy. Steve Weish telling Rich Eisen that he believes that Brock Purdy would be a sleeper MVP candidate for the NFL this season. And it makes a lot of sense. You look at what Brock Purdy did last season in terms of, only having 3 interceptions after taking over at quarterback for the 49ers. Right now, at this point, he now has 20 touchdowns and just 3 interceptions. He's had a tremendous season. And one of the biggest things that Steve Weish said wasn't really necessarily even just about the performance of Brock Purdy in terms of his stats. It really had nothing to do with his stats and had everything to do with what he's heard from 49ers players, from the teammates of Brock Purdy. According to Steve Weish, he said that, teammates see Brock Purdy as a killer. That's what they see. They see Brock Purdy as a killer, a guy who, when you need to go 75 yards to score at the end of a half and you don't have timeouts, he's going to go out, he's going to have fun with it, and he's going to go out and make the most of it. We've seen that already this season. In week 2, down in Los Angeles, 75 yards at the end of the first half for a score as time expired. This is the stuff all offseason we heard that Brock Purdy couldn't do, right? Brock Purdy doesn't have the arm strength to do those kind of things, so on and so forth. Yet here you've got Purdy doing it against the Rams. We see it week in and week out with him. You can go back to last season and you see examples of him doing that as well. And beyond that, what Steve Weish was getting at was that, from what he understands and in the discussions he's had with 49ers players, is that Brock Purdy, they just kind of all feel that Brock Purdy is their guy. In Brock Purdy, the 49ers have our guy. And that's huge. And we've heard this. Don't even have to hear Steve Weish say that. All you have to do is really listen to what Kyle Shanahan has said all offseason, what he said all offseason, what John Lynch said all offseason, even before we got there, even before we got to this point. Throughout the offseason, throughout the run up to the beginning of the year, we kept hearing them tell you that Brock Purdy is their guy. Brock Purdy is their quarterback. That's the guy that they intended to start with. That Brock Purdy did enough as a rookie in that first season, in those first 8 games, that he's who they feel like they're going to go forward with. And he's done nothing to show any kind of negativity towards that belief. All of the belief that Lynch and Kyle Shanahan had in him has come through already in these first 3 games. And beyond that, all you had to do was listen to Brandon Ayuk. If you didn't want to listen to the general manager and the head coach, listen to what Brandon Ayuk has said about him. He's been very complimentary of Brock Purdy. Same thing with Deebo Samuel, the number 1 and 2 receivers on the 49ers. They've talked at length about how good Brock Purdy was last year, how much they enjoy playing with Brock Purdy. And, I think when you watch him play, there's just so much to what he does that really stands out. And, here's a little nitpicking and those types of things. He hasn't been perfect. One of the things I've seen brought up is that Brock Purdy, he puts the ball in harm's way. Well, he has. He has. If you look at the first 3 weeks of this season, Brock Purdy has 4 turnover-worthy plays according to Pro Football Focus. That's 4. Now, if you go back to the first 3 games that he played when he took over for Jimmy Garoppolo last year, Miami, Tampa Bay, Seattle, guess what? You're going to find. That's right. Brock Purdy had 4 turnover-worthy plays. He's the same guy in terms of that. Brock Purdy's a guy that's going to push the ball down the field. He's not going to take the checkdowns. He's going to try to drive the ball to that 10 to 19-yard range. He's going to try to drive the ball to that 20-yard range. He's going to try to pick up a first down on one throw. So he's not a guy that's afraid. If he sees something, he's going to let it rip. All the talk about his arm and that, whatever. It's the discussion about his arm strength is completely really irrelevant when you actually sit down and watch the way he plays the game, watch the throws that he makes on a routine, regular basis, and how he's doing it. Because a lot of what he's doing, it's all based on his belief in what he's seen. He gets the ball out of his hands quickly. He beats the rush, all kinds of things like that. So Brock Purdy, though, according to Steve Weish, is a MVP candidate, a dark horse at that, but an MVP candidate nonetheless. Shane Colmarino says, "What's up, Jack?" Shane, good to have you on board. Shane is a longtime follower. He's got to become a member of the Toolbox. So we got to pressure Shane into becoming a member of the Toolbox. Shane also says the 49ers have finally gotten off to a fast start. It's like 2019, but better. Yeah, that's it, right? In 2019, that's the last time we saw them get off to a start like this. They were 2-0 back in 2021. They beat the Lions and they beat the Eagles in the first couple of weeks of the season, but they didn't win week 3, and they struggled a little bit there. Those early season losses are a big reason why they were in Los Angeles for the NFC Championship game in the 2021 season at the end of that year. And then last season, those early season losses again were part of the reason why the 49ers had to go out to Philadelphia. So now the 49ers need to take care of business. And you look at the way it's everything is shaping up the way that I think everybody expected. The 49ers, the Philadelphia Eagles, the 2 best teams in the NFC right now. What do you see after 3 weeks? There's two undefeated teams in the NFC, and it's the 49ers and it's the Eagles. The Dallas Cowboys, they lost last week to Arizona, who the 49ers are going to play on Sunday coming up. But you look at that Cowboys team in that game. The Cowboys dealing with a lot of injuries along the offensive line. They lost their best defensive back as well in Trevon Diggs. So the Cowboys are dealing with a lot of issues, and they're probably going to get stronger as the season goes along. But I don't know if they're ever going to be as good as the 49ers anyway. We've already seen the 49ers now beat the Cowboys in back-to-back seasons, right? The Cowboys aren't a vastly different team than they've ever been in the last 2 years when the 49ers took care of business against them. Yeah, they have a good defense. Yes, they're going to cause pressure and cause trouble for you in the passing game. But the 49ers have enough weapons and enough strength that if they are able to go into stay healthy, they're going to be able to, I think, win those games. And I think the fact that they get Dallas on week 5 actually might play into their positive for the 49ers. But yeah, Brock Purdy, MVP, as Glocky says, MV Purdy. Maybe if he wins the MVP, maybe ESPN will come out with a 30 for Purdy. I don't know. We'll see. Shane says, "Why is it when other quarterbacks nearly get picked, they are gunslingers, but if it's a smaller guy, they're lucky?" This is an interesting one, Shane. It's something that goes along with kind of what I've been thinking really all off season, and it's coming up again because there's just this constant conversation about quarterback wins and quarterback wins not being a stat, a quarterback stat. It's a team stat, all these different types of things, and I get it, and I to an extent I understand it, and I think that quarterbacks never win by themselves, right? But they do play a major role in teams being able to win. There's a reason why teams that win a lot usually have the better quarterback. It's not a surprise, shouldn't be a shock there, right? I think to your point though here, Shane, where you're saying why is it other quarterbacks nearly get picked and they're gunslingers, but if it's a smaller guy, they're lucky. I think it's not really so much the size as it is what guys like, what you like. If you're a fan of a guy who can make crazy throws, then it doesn't really matter if they're losing. When they lose, then it's it's not their fault. They're playing on a bad team, and who cares if it doesn't matter that they're throwing interceptions here and there. All these types of things, right? if it's all a matter of preference. If a guy does things that you like, you're going to overlook the negative. If a guy doesn't, even if a guy, is winning, if he doesn't look a certain type of way or play a certain style that you prefer, then you're going to nitpick it. And there's other things that go into this, especially when it comes to Brock Purdy. There's still, talked about it, how, really a lot of the negativity around Brock Purdy has to do with not even really Brock Purdy. It has to do with the fact that Trey Lance never became the guy in San Francisco. So a lot of the negativity around Purdy has to do with that, because he wasn't the big, strong, fast guy that Trey Lance was. Never mind the fact that Brock Purdy, even though he's a little bit undersized, doesn't have the rocket arm, beats the rush, beats the blitz, gets the ball out on time, routinely makes plays that are above and beyond what you see around the NFL on a regular basis. And I think if you watch Brock Purdy enough, if you watch quarterbacks around the NFL enough, yeah, Brock Purdy's limited in terms of he's not going to get out of the pocket and throw the ball 70 yards down the field. It's just not going to happen, right? But when you watch Brock Purdy play, what you see is a team that's extremely good at moving the ball down the field. One of the things that I heard this offseason in terms of, getting after Brock Purdy was people comparing Brock Purdy to Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback out in Miami. We're now 3 weeks into the season. And if you had to guess which two offenses have the most explosive plays in the NFL through the first 3 weeks, guess what? The number one team is led by Tua Tagovailoa. The Miami Dolphins have 29. Number two, the San Francisco 49ers with Brock Purdy at quarterback, who have 24. And what would be a Jack Hammer show without having some sirens in the background and talking and doors opening and everything else? This is fantastic. Love it. But that's really it, right? Tua, Brock Purdy, they are leading the two most explosive offenses in the NFL. Two guys without the big arms, two guys that just go out, play the game, make plays, and help their teams win. It's really wild. Also, two guys that happen to have very strong supporting casts around them. Nobody will ever question how much talent they have in Miami. Same thing out here in San Francisco. But just in kind of thinking over, watching the game on Monday night, just step back for a second and look at all of the talent that is around Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. Right? People love Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a guy that people really like. And when you watch Jalen Hurts, guess what? When you watch Jalen Hurts play, he's an interesting one to me, because, the whole dink and dunk thing and all the different things that we've heard, it's an interesting one when you get to Jalen Hurts, because this is a guy who definitely has the arm, can air it out, but his arm isn't necessarily as strong as people think. He throws the deep ball every once in a while, but he's not a super strong arm. And when you watch Jalen Hurts play, he's an interesting one because he throws the ball short a lot. It is literally, if you were going to define dink and dunk as somebody that throws short and somebody that throws long, that is what you get with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is definitely that. Jalen Hurts, when you watch him play, it's either short or it's long. So if you look at Jalen Hurts, for example, this season, 47.1% of his throws are under 9 yards. So if I was just to do some quick math, I'm not very good at math, but let me do it real quick. 47.3 on throws that are 47.1 on throws 0 to 9. 14.3 of his throws are behind the line of scrimmage. That means that for Jalen Hurts, 61.4% of the throws that Jalen Hurts makes are either 9 yards down the field or shorter. That's right, 61%. 18.6% go into that medium range, and then you got 10% on the deep area, which is just an interesting thing to take a look at there, because that's just one of the things that we hear all the time is that whole depth piece. You turn it around, you look at Brock Purdy in the same manner. Look at his numbers for this year. Actually, these are last year's numbers, but either way, he's 15.9 to 43.8. He's right around 70%. So 60 to 61 to 60 to 69. If we take a look at this year's numbers, I think we're going to see something similar to that. For Brock Purdy so far this season, here in 2023, 69.4% of his throws are under nine yards. yards or less. 23.1% of the time he is throwing into that middle area. That's the area that he really likes to work, that 10 to 19 yard range. And then 8.8% for the long. So you're looking at about 30, roughly, what's that, 31.9% of his passes going beyond. And then when we look at Jalen Hurts with those numbers, it's very similar. For Jalen Hurts for this season, those were the numbers that I gave you earlier. Jalen Hurts this year, 61%, actually higher than that. He has 28.6% of his throws are beyond 10 yards. Okay, so for I got to learn how to do math. I suck at math. But you look at it, 28.6% of Jalen Hurts throws that are actually targeted throws are 10 yards or longer. For Brock Purdy, that number a little bit higher. Let me get to it. If I can find it, that'd be great. 31.9. So, Jalen Hurts, people love Jalen Hurts. 28.6% of his throws beyond 10 yards. Brock Purdy, 31.9%. Brock Purdy's the guy with the noodle arm. Brock Purdy's the guy that doesn't have the ability to throw it deep. All those different types of things. See, it's usually a lot better when Jack gets ready to do this show if he actually gets these numbers ahead of time, so that I'm not throwing out stuff as we're going through it. But again, 28.6% of Jalen Hurts throws are either 10 yards or past the line of scrimmage, 10 plus. When it comes to Brock Purdy, 31.9 plus. Yeah, it just really depends. Again, going back to that comment again. It just depends on guys, what you prefer. Andrew H says he's tapped out on football questions. He just wants to know what's for dinner. Andrew, for dinner tonight, it's more football. That's right. I'm going to do the show, then I'm going to go watch some high school football tonight. Get ready for that. A big game for my son. They're playing their arch rival tonight. Should be a lot of fun. But I'll be heading over there at 6 o'clock. So I'll probably be having a hot dog, maybe some nachos and a soda while I watch that game. But Brock Purdy, again, a really solid quarterback. As Steve Weiss says, this is a guy who teammates really love. Brock Purdy, they say he's a killer, all those types of things. That's good stuff. And is Brock Purdy an MVP candidate? I think he's going to be if he can continue this throughout the entire season. Now, the other thing with this is, he's going to be fighting for some MVP votes, because there's another guy on this 49ers team that's really good that has already been named the NFC's offensive player for the month of September, and that is running back Christian McCaffrey. So Christian McCaffrey earlier today was named the NFC offensive player for the month of September. Just a tremendous start to the year for Christian McCaffrey. Over 300 yards rushing. He over 100 yards in both of the first two games last week. Probably would have got there if they didn't take him out. 353 yards total on just 60 carries. Christian McCaffrey has just 60 carries in the first 3 weeks. He is averaging 5.9 yards per rush attempt. That's right, 5.9 yards per rush for Christian McCaffrey. Also has 3 touchdowns. He's a big part of the reason why the 49ers have so many explosive plays. He actually has 9 runs of 10 or more yards this season. The 49ers is a team with 13. Elijah Mitchell has 1. Brock Purdy with 1. That one coming in week 1 out in Pittsburgh. Deebo Samuel with a couple of them. So 13 runs of 10 plus yards. Those are explosive runs for the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey with 9 of those on the way to a starting of this season here in September, where he was named the NFC's offensive player of the month. Again, 353 yards for Christian McCaffrey, 5.9 yards per rush attempt, and 3 touchdowns to go along with it. Just a really solid start for Christian McCaffrey. You've got to give him credit. Give him credit there for how well he's playing. He's a big piece of that. I was a big proponent of the 49ers going out and making a trade for Christian McCaffrey last year. The talk is, and it still continues to be, all about Brian Burns and adding the pass rusher. And even with all that talk last year, he said if the 49ers want to improve their offense, they need to go out and get Christian McCaffrey, because, and we're seeing why. Christian McCaffrey is a stud in every sense of the word when it comes to football player. Watch Christian McCaffrey out here with Stanford for years. The one thing that's funny about Christian McCaffrey, he's not a big guy, right? This week we're going to see James Conner, a big bruising type of running back. Christian McCaffrey isn't that way. Christian McCaffrey is a smaller guy in terms of his, size and weight and all those kind of things. But Christian McCaffrey has no problem running between the tackles. And so he fits perfectly in with this 49ers run scheme. And then on top of that, his ability to get out and catch the ball as a receiver and do all these different things just really suits Kyle Shanahan's style. So that's why I wanted them to go out and make that trade. They went out and did it. It paid dividends for him. They haven't lost a game yet with him as a starter. They did lose his first game against the Chiefs. If you remember, he was playing in partial duty, and then they didn't have a quarterback in the NFC Championship game. But other than that, Christian McCaffrey has been an absolute spine for the 49ers. Everybody, I think, should have known how good he was, but it's really he's the dual threat type of running back that fits in perfectly with the 49ers system. And then you look forward to this weekend, and the 49ers have the Arizona Cardinals coming in. Real quick, got Holland over here just disagreeing with me. Says I disagree, Jack. Christian McCaffrey has bulked up quite a bit as he's gotten older. I understand. I'm not when I'm talking about he's not a big guy. Yeah, he is bulky. Like for his size, for his stature, he's thick. He's right. But when I'm talking about like that big, that guy that is going to run inside, Christian McCaffrey is not the same size as Elijah Mitchell. I think Elijah Mitchell is more of the type of guy that you would think is being between the tackles runner. He's a little bit bigger than Christian McCaffrey. So, I'm not trying to say that he's small. I'm just saying for his stature, for his size, those aren't typically guys that you think are going to run the ball in between the tackles over and over again, like what we've seen McCaffrey be able to do in his time here. That's all. But I agree with you. He has gotten bigger and stronger. He was big, but he was that way when he was at Stanford too. He was a between the tackles guy there, doing a really good job. Yo, CJ, how you doing? CG Ruthless in the house. Yo, CG, how you doing, my man? So yeah, good things there for the 49ers. Brock Purdy, an MVP candidate. You have Player of the Month for Christian McCaffrey, and then you've got this big game coming up on Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. And yeah, I think it's a big game. It's a real big game for the 49ers. It's a division game. It's against a team that just beat the Dallas Cowboys. There couldn't have been a better outcome on Sunday than the Cardinals beating the Cowboys, because what that should do is get everybody focused in on taking care of business against Arizona. You look at the Cardinals, listening to the 49ers players talk in the locker room yesterday, I don't think they're overlooking the Cardinals at all. You look at the Cardinals, this is a team that coming into the season, a lot of people thought was going to be one of the laughing stocks of the NFL. But instead, they've come out, and the Cardinals in the first 3 weeks of the season have actually had the lead going into the fourth quarter. They had the lead in Washington. Turnovers cost them that game. The next week, they had the lead going into the fourth quarter against the Giants. Their offense absolutely just got run off the field in their last 4 possessions. Only 58 yards of total offense over the last 4 possessions against the Giants. And then last week they put it all together. They didn't turn the ball over. They had a big interception in the end zone. So instead of them turning the ball over, they actually forced a turnover. And then you come into this game, the 49ers are 14-point favorites. I think there's a possibility that the 49ers win this game by 14, but I don't think it's one of those boat race kind of games necessarily. Even this game last week against the Giants, remember, it was a close game in the third quarter, maybe early fourth quarter in terms of the scoreboard. It was only, what was it? Was it 20-12? I think was the score at one point. So they had made it a one-score game. I still don't understand why the Giants went for 2 instead of kicking a field goal just to go down by 7. But regardless, you look at that game and it ends up being 30-12. But at one point it was 20-12, and it was a little bit closer. And I think we're going to see the same thing this week. I think you're going to see a tough game for the 49ers against the Cardinals. We'll break that down a lot more tomorrow on the channel and on Sunday, as well as we get closer to it and we start to preview the game. But right now, I just think this game is going to be a lot closer than a lot of people would expect, or especially expected at the beginning of the season. But taking a look at the 49ers practice report as we get ready. The Thursday practice report for the 49ers, Dre Greenlaw returning to practice today. He didn't practice yesterday. He was back on the field today. Brandon Ayuk, he got to take the blue jersey off, so that no contact jersey gone. Back out there in the red Brandon Ayuk was a limited participant, as was Ambre Thomas and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. Flanagan-Fowles and Thomas and Ayuk, all limited participants yesterday as well. Except for the good news with Ayuk, though, is that blue jersey comes off, and that means that he's one step closer to playing on Sunday. So I definitely think we're going to see Ayuk go for the 49ers against the Cardinals. Two guys that didn't participate in practice today, Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel. Jennings still dealing with the shin issue. Samuel still sidelined with the ribs in the knee. From what I understand, they were both on the field during the walkthrough portion of practice, but then as the media got out there and practice started to begin, Deebo Samuel went to the locker room. Juwan Jennings was working on the side field along with Danny Gray. Now, somebody asked me on the show yesterday about Danny Gray. Danny Gray has after this week, he then becomes eligible to come off of IR. So you've got to be, if you're on IR, it means you missed those first 4 weeks of the season. I wouldn't expect to see Danny Gray jump right back onto the field. I think the Pointers would take their time there, but that's just another reason as to why they're, where they are in terms of their performance. I would be, if I was a 49er fan, I think the 49ers is in general, depending on what happens with Deebo Samuel and also Juwan Jennings, that's a little bit of an interesting thing because the 49ers have two of their top three wide receivers not practicing this week right now, and there's a real strong possibility that the 49ers will go into this game, even if Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings play, that they will have not played at all during or practice at all in the run up to the game. So that means no work with Brock Purdy prior to the game. We'll see if the 49ers try to come out and with a similar type of a game plan to what they had last week against the Giants, where they just used two tight ends more often than not. So we'll see how that plays out. But for the 49ers, in terms of their injury report right now, Dre Greenlaw was limited, as was Brandon Ayuk, Ambry Thomas, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel not practicing. Trent Williams, he had the day off yesterday. That was a rest day, but he was back on the field today. So that's what we have right now for the 49ers. As far as the Cardinals, Chris Barnes, a linebacker there, he didn't practice yesterday due to finger, but he was back today. He was in a limited capacity. For Arizona, a couple of names added to their list today. One big one is wide receiver Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. He was added to the injury report today as a limited participant. According to reports that I've seen, Marquise Brown apparently injured his thumb today during practice for the Cardinals. That could be a big injury for them. One of their top receivers there in Arizona. Other guys that missed practice were limited. Yesterday, James Conner was a limited participant. He was a full participant today. Conner, the big running back, who's done good against the 49ers in the past. That's going to be a big matchup. My marquee matchup for this week is going to be James Conner against Fred Warner and their ability to shut him down. I really put that on Fred Warner to be able to make those stops and bring him down quickly. Calvin Beachum and Zaven Collins. Zaven Collins got poked in the eye against the Cowboys. He was a full participant yesterday, again today. But the big news out of Arizona was the addition of Marquise Brown to the injury report with a thumb injury. Also, a couple of big names, especially one defensive end Jonathan Ledbetter. He lines up primarily in the inside, in the middle of this Arizona Cardinals defense. Ledbetter has not practiced yet this week. He missed practice Wednesday and Thursday with a finger injury. That's a big injury out for Carolina. Ledbetter only has one sack on the season, but he leads the Cardinals in terms of hurries. He's forced 7 quarterback hurries so far this season to the first 3 weeks. So if he's not able to go, that could help the 49ers. You look at what Arizona's done this season. They've been a really good team at generating pressure. They don't blitz a lot. They actually blitz the least amount of any team in the league. But besides that, they generate a lot of pressure. When I look at this game, and we'll get into this a little bit more as we go through this week. We still have a couple of days before the game, but I think this is a big one for the 49ers in terms of later in the season. When you watch the Arizona Cardinals play on film, their offense, their defense, it's pretty much like you're watching the Philadelphia Eagles. What they're doing on offense, what they're doing on defense. Jonathan Gannon wasn't a big blitzer for Philadelphia last year. He was a guy who was going to get after you up front. He was going to let his guy, the backfield, play their play their stuff. So I really think that we're going to see um, this is a good glimpse of what we're going to see later on in the season when the 49ers um, go out to Philadelphia. You know, you get those defensive ends get up the field quick. They don't really care about the run. Those guys are tackling the run on the way to the quarterback. Your defensive linemen all pretty much pinning their ears back. It's, you know, the way that the Eagles played it last year, and they're still doing it now, and the way that Arizona, you know, these are guys that really do a good job of getting up the field, getting after the quarterback. Their job is they're getting to the quarterback, and if they make a tackle on the way, they're going to get there. And part of it is when you get all that pressure and you're beating, you know, you're penetrating the offensive line, that allows your linebackers to sprint to the ball and make plays. And we're seeing that right now in San Francisco as well. Somebody mentioned Steve Wilks over here. Randy Daytona says Wilks knows the cards. But, you know, at the same time, I think it's very similar to the 49ers. Their defensive linemen are doing such a good job of getting up the field. It really helps Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Warren Burks when he's out there get upfield and make plays. So positive stuff there. And then, you know, in the run game on offense, this is very similar to what you see with Philadelphia, right? A lot of quarterback runs, a lot of quarterback, you know, option type of stuff with play action throws coming off of it. We just talked about the dink and dunk nature of Jalen Hurts. You know, the amount of throws that he has that are you know, under 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. Well, you're seeing the same thing here with the Arizona Cardinals. If the 49ers can shut down the run game, if they can force the Cardinals to have to beat them with the pass, if they can do that, they have a really good chance, you know, of winning this game on Sunday. They just really need to make Joshua Dobbs beat him with his arm. If they can force him to have to throw the ball, it's a big plus for the 49ers defense. That's going to be a tough ask. The Cardinals are a very good running team. Last week, over 200 yards against the Dallas Cowboys. You know, a couple of big plays really, you know, set that up. You had a 45-yard touchdown run for Rondale Moore on an option run around the left side. That was huge. Dobbs breaking off a 44-yard run on a scramble. You know, that's 89 of the yards on just two runs. And then obviously you get the runs with that you get the strong runs with Connor as well. But I just think this matchup sets up really well for the 49ers for even down the road. I think this is a game, like I said, it's going to be close in the first half. I think the 49ers pull away late. We'll get into it, you know, my prediction and all those kind of things. That'll be coming up down the road here as we get closer to game time. I'll probably bring you that on Sunday. Probably make you wait for my prediction until Sunday, but I'm kind of giving it away anyway. I do think the 49ers win this game. I think the 49ers are a team that I just don't, unless the 49ers really screw up in a game and they just don't play their style, I don't see them losing. And they just have so much talent. The quarterback doesn't screw it up. The running game is strong. The defense gets after the quarterback. You know, you're looking at a defense right now in San Francisco that gets after the quarterback. I think they have 79 total pressures, you know, between sacks, hurries, and quarterback hits this season. Javon Kinlaw is a backup defensive tackle who's played only 60, I think, what is it, like 69 or something like that, pass rushing snaps this year. And he has, I think, 10 of the 49ers hurries. You know, they just look it up right now. So 62 pass rush snaps for Javon Kinlaw. That means that he has 10, and he has 10 total pressures, all hurries. That means he's getting a pressure on the quarterback or making the quarterback hurry 1 out of every 6 times and dropping back. I mean, those numbers are just crazy when you compare that to a guy like Nick Bosa, who has 15 over 105 snaps. You know, what Javon Kinlaw has been able to do when he's gotten out there. Eric Armstead said of Javon Kinlaw that, you know, that's just the 49ers really have 3 starting interior defensive linemen, and it really makes sense. You look at their numbers. You look at the total pressures for the 49ers. You've got 15 for Nick Bosa. He's a defensive end. But then you've got Javon Hargrave at 13, Javon Kinlaw at 10, Eric Armstead with 10. So, you know, of the 49ers and 79 total pressures, you know, 30, what is that, 30, 32 are coming from just Hargrave, Kinlaw, and Armstead right up the middle. Kevin Givens with a couple more, Kerry Hyder, who plays inside and outside with a few. They just get after the quarterback in so many different ways. Austin Bryant's played only one game. He got 2 pressures in that game against Pittsburgh in week 1. So this defense just gets after the quarterback so much that if the 49ers can stop the run and force Joshua Dobbs to beat them on Sunday, the 49ers win. And I think that defense, along with the lack of turnovers offensively, takes the 49ers to a team that can win 15, 16, go undefeated if they handle their business all the way through. Not that you necessarily want them to go 17-0. It's only happened once one time in the NFL history where a team's gone undefeated throughout the regular season and then won the Super Bowl. It's only happened twice in NFL history where a team's gone undefeated in the regular season. The last time was the Patriots and they lost. So we'll see how it works out. Chris Osorno coming in says Brock Purdy along with Christian McCaffrey and the best Niners defense is going to annihilate the Cardinals, in my opinion. The Cardinals will be overwhelmed at some point. Faithful will be rowdy. That's my last thing that I want to say real quick. I'll go through the injury report one more time before we leave. But that's another thing is there any team out there that when you see them screen, says big game less than the Arizona Cardinals? The Arizona. I mean, I don't know. I've been around for probably too long, so I remember a lot of bad Cardinals teams. I know that they've given the 49ers fits. Even in 1988 when the 49ers won the Super Bowl that year, one of their bad losses was to the Arizona Cardinals. That was with I think Joe Montana might have got injured in that game. I know Bill Walsh got injured in that game, got hurt on the sideline. But regardless, the Cardinals are just an interesting team. They just don't bring that aura of a big game, even if it is a big game. And I do think this is a big game. But that's this is a good comment. I do think that it's going to be, I think the 49ers are going to overwhelm them at some point. I don't think it's going to be from the very beginning. I see this game being tight early, and then it gets spread out late in the game. In the fourth quarter, the 49ers pull away. That's the way that I see this playing out. I do think it's going to be tough. But again, really quick, again, Steve Weish says that he feels like Brock Purdy is a sleeper when it comes to MVP candidates, that he feels like Brock Purdy needs to be a part of that discussion. Teammates really are the ones that have talked about Brock Purdy being a killer, that if they have to take the ball 75 yards in a hurry up type of situation, he's going to go out, he's going to have fun with that. I think when you watch Brock Purdy play, that's all part of it. The guy just, what was it, 80+% on Sunday against the Giants. They blitzed him, and he was able to still stand up to that and make the plays. He's not going to get blitzed I don't think that much this week, but still he's a big part of what they do. And then you look at the 49ers injury list. Their injury list has grown, especially compared to earlier this year. You have Dre Greenlaw, a limited participant, along with Ayuk, who got that blue jersey off. So he was able to be a full, in terms of that. He was listed as limited, but wasn't limited in terms of contact today. Ambry Thomas, limited. Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, limited. The only two that didn't participate, Juwan Jennings and Deebo Samuel. We'll see. Like I said, Samuel was seen walking off the field after the walkthrough. I'm not sure how much of that he was able to actually participate in. And if Samuel and Jennings can't go, that's a tough break, because that's 2 of your top 3 wide receivers right there. That'd be really interesting to see how they work from a passing game standpoint. The Cardinals, Chris Barnes limited, no Jonathan Ledbetter or Josh Woods. Marquise Brown joined their injury report today, and Keontae Ingram was a limited participant as well. He also joined the Cardinals injury report today. So there you have it. Hey, like I always like to say, take it for what it's worth. I think the 49ers have a really good shot here. Oh, yeah, one last thing. Christian McCaffrey, once again, just to remind you if you didn't already hear it, Christian McCaffrey was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Month for September. So positive news there. Hey, if you guys can do me a favor, hit that like button before you leave. After you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And then after you subscribe, make sure you turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of the updates right here on Inside the 49ers with Jack Hammer. I will be live tomorrow a couple of different times, I believe, going through. We'll do the injury report, but earlier in the day, I expect to be with Larry Kruger, Krugs and Hammer on a Friday. At least that's what I expect. We'll see how that all goes out. But you'll see me tomorrow. One way or another, we'll be on here. And then Saturday and Sunday, keep it locked in here, Inside the 49ers with Jack Hammer. Thank you all so much. like, subscribe, and make sure you turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of the updates. Have a great rest of your Thursday night, everybody. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks you all so much for watching.